Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Antonio Michael Downing, author, musician, and creative force. Please enjoy Antonio Michael Downing. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Antonio Michael Downing, author, musician, and creative force. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, hi, Mari. It's great to be here.
I am so excited to chat with you about creativity. I can tell we are just going to have such a rich and amazing conversation. Before we dive in to your creative experience, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Wow. Well, Antonio Michael Downing is the name they gave me. I grew up on the I was born and grew up in some places that are big in current events. I was born actually in Caracas, Venezuela.
Wow.
And I grew up in the Caribbean island of Trinidad, which is right next door to Venezuela. My grandma raised me in kind of a one-road village in jungle, rural Trinidad, so it's jungle, and she taught me two big things: how to read, because her eyes were bad, so she taught me to read so I could be her eyes and read her King James Bible for her. She loves Psalms and Proverbs and the poetic pieces, and how to sing, which is what she did a lot of. So those two things have kind of defined what I do. I write novels. I just published Black Cherokee with Simon and Schuster in August. It's a coming of age of a young girl who's both Black and Cherokee and gets rejected by both. I have also done a memoir with Penguin Random House. And I host a radio show that goes out nationally in Canada, but also is a podcast that you can find on wherever you get podcasts. It's called The Next Chapter, where I do a lot of like what you're doing, Mari, interviewing artists and authors and talking to them about their process and what books they recommend and what books have influenced them. And so everything I do is surrounded with creativity and process and discipline and inspiration and all of these things. This is the bread and butter I live by.
I love it. And what an incredible journey to start with reading and singing, and then to have that blossom into so many of or just to be the backbone of everything else you do in your life. And sounds like it's really rich in your history and also the things that you share out in the world too. So I love that.
Yeah, which is fundamental to my creative process. I feel like, I don't know, Mari, if you've ever done something really hard, there's a point where you ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Hopefully this conversation doesn't go there. But yeah, and so I like to think what I found was when you get to that point, it helps to have a really good answer. And what that means is you have to build your why into your what. So the thing that you decide to do, it should be related to your purpose and how you see your purpose in the world. So everything I do is anchored by singing, by vocalizing, by poetry, by reading, by writing, by storytelling. And there's lots of things within that. I'm a public speaker. There's lots of other things around that, and I've spent most of the last 20 years playing music and recording and writing songs, and so all of that incorporates all of that, and because it feels so resonant to my life, to my purpose, when it gets hard, which it does.
Yeah.
Um, I asked myself, why are you doing this? All I got to do is think of my grandmother, and it's
Mm,
like, oh yeah, that's why. Keep
yeah.
going, suck it up.
That's a beautiful touchstone to have. When you think of creativity and more of this, like the experience of being creative, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Yeah, well, again, not to sound like a broken record, but it goes back to how I grew up. The
Mhm.
place I grew up in, it's like unlimited rainfall, unlimited sunshine, so everything grows huge. Like
Mm.
avocados from Trinidad are like the size of your head. And yeah, like they're huge. And so of course the insects that eat them also grow huge.
Mhm.
And a lot of the things that eat the insects grow large, like parrots and parakeets. Like we have a lot of birds. And then the things that eat those, you just don't ever want to meet them. Like there's real life monsters out there. But the thing about it is, it's a place of fecundity and growth and
Mm.
endless renewing. Like it never, the mango tree doesn't say, hey, we had mango last year, buddy. There's no mangoes this year. It's just every year it's renewing itself and it's growing, and it's essentially how I see it, being creative. And
Mhm.
so that's my view of creativity as a kind of an organic thing that our lives produce, regardless of whether we get paid to do it or not. Our life is always, getting to lunch involves a lot of creative problem solving. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I see creativity as the natural byproduct of human beings trying to survive in a world that, and a life that isn't always, it doesn't make it easy for you. For most of us anyway. I don't know, not for me.
That is very, very true. And thank you for bringing that up because I think this idea of being creative in a world where it's not necessarily always supportive of creativity. And so, how do you keep that creative spark alive when surrounded by things that are trying to snuff it out?
Yeah, well, that's as an, first and foremost, I recognize that creativity, everything is creativity.
Hmm.
And so that always keeps me alive. And I've lived that. I've gone into the corporate world,
Hmm.
changed my shiny, dancy jacket for a business blazer,
Yeah.
and been incredibly good at sales because I
Mm.
recognize the connection between it and theater. There's a
Mm.
costume, there are lines. They even use some similar terms: roles, performers, top
Mhm.
performers. And so I think that the great lie we've been told is that creativity is something these people over here do, and the rest of us muggles, we have to do boring things. But the truth is, everything requires creative problem solving.
Mhm.
Everything requires a delicate dance between action and reflection. And so that's the first thing. As an artist, yeah, I get it. Like, look, you know, if you don't do your art, whatever you're trying to get out, it's a song, is it a poem, is it a book, is it a stand-up routine? If you don't do it, nobody is going to get you in trouble. Nobody's going to show up and shake you by the cuff. The IRS isn't going to come looking for you. In fact, many people will praise you for all the things you can do because you're not busy
Mhm.
wrestling with your creative demons.
Mhm.
Um, but you will know.
Mhm.
You will know that you didn't do it, and it will haunt you
Mhm.
all the way till your last days. It will haunt you. And so I find the act of keeping the flame alive is recognizing that it ain't going nowhere. And
Mm.
if this, if quote Johnny Lee Hooker, let that boy boogie woogie, he's got it in him, and it's got to come out. And so, and I think many people have borne this out. They try to hide from their creative impulse
Mm,
because it's not practical, or I'm too busy, or all the reasons,
hmm
but it never goes away. It never
mm,
goes away. In fact, it comes back louder the more you ignore it. And so those are the two pillars for me, is that first of all, everything is creativity.
hmm
Second of all, I'm going to long to do this all my days. I might as well start working and get good at it.
mm. It's so true. I agree. And for people who maybe struggle with listening to that inner creative voice or figuring out how to express themselves with creativity, how would you encourage them to start that or take the first steps into that?
Um, I think first and foremost, you have to honor that drive, that throb, that longing that I just described. You have to
Mm-hmm.
first of all recognize it, value it, and honor it, and give it space,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, if you don't, no one will congratulate you for doing it, and no one will berate you for not doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to decide, hey, I want to do this. This is worthy. This is important. I'm going to dedicate time to it. It takes a long way to get to that. And once you do, I mean, I would encourage you to play,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's all it is. Like I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, as a often as an artist, people come up to you and go, I don't have a musical bone in my body. I've heard that a million times.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, Mari, it's completely untrue.
Mm-hmm.
95% of the human population, apparently, according to scientists, can be taught to have perfect pitch. So we are all musical beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do this often in groups of people where comes up. I'll say, okay, put up your hand if when you were a kid you made up a song. Keep your hand up. Put up your hand if you play acted. Put up a hand if you drew some crazy sketchy picture that and you didn't care who watched it. Put up your hand if you danced and didn't care if you were
Mm-hmm.
good at it. And
Mm-hmm.
by the end, everyone's got their hand up. And then I say, see, we're all artists and we've always been. And so, and the key to it is plugging into this time when judgment didn't matter,
Mm-hmm.
when judgment didn't matter. And I think of that as play, right?
Yeah.
When we were kids and we were like, if I'd met you in the playground, we'd be like, we'd probably be friends. I'd be, Mari, let's go play.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Let's make something up. Let's invent something. Let's use our brains. What do you want to do? Let's play.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like when I talk to really accomplished artists, I was hanging with a group of really accomplished musicians over Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
and they do this every year, actually 23 years in a row they've done
Mm.
this. Between Christmas and New Year's, a bunch of really great musicians get together. The cast of characters changes year to year,
Sure.
and they set up all their instruments, they mic them up, they set up a little recording 4 track, and so they just play with each other, quickly write songs, arrange it, and record it. And it's just fun and playing. And so the better I get at my craft, the more I realize
Mm.
that it's the exact same thing I used to do when I was an adolescent. It
Mm-hmm.
is not different. And so for someone struggling with their creativity, I would say number one, make space for it, honor it, value it. And number
Mm-hmm.
two, when you get in that space, pretend you were a child and no one and it was ever going to see what you're going to do. And you're just doing something because it made you happy or laugh or it thrilled you to make it. And I think if you root yourself in that, you're going to have a blast and you're going to come back.
Mm. That is such a great reminder, and thank you for breaking it down into those two pillars and spaces of
really honoring that history that we all are creative and we've all
Mhm.
experienced it without judgment. And for, you know, in your expression of creativity, that it is in a public facing space, how do you navigate the subjectivity of creativity when people like or don't like or have opinions? How do you navigate that?
I think that that is the exact problem.
Mm,
Um, I think that when someone says I don't have a musical bone in my body, within 3 questions, I can get to the incident where someone told them that they were terrible and they shouldn't do it. And then they internalize that self-judgment. And
hmm
that's why now they loathe their own creativity.
hmm
So I think the art of being a public artist, a professional artist in all these different fields is about being able to listen to what people have to say,
mm,
but also hold sacred that creativity and understand that they're not, no criticism can ever touch the thing that you've done. So
mm,
so
hmm
I think also the way to deal with the public criticism is to go back to being a child playing,
hmm
because the difference between the reason why that whole room of people think that they're not artists, but they actually always were, is
Yeah.
because they learned how to judge themselves harshly, and therefore the fear of that judgment, it kind of keeps them away from the creativity. So what
Mm,
I do,
hmm
so just as the practice involves
hmm
going back to play, I believe that the business also involves keeping it in play, like
mm,
understanding, because
hmm
many of the best artists, when I talk to them, they go, hey, I do what makes me happy. I
Yeah.
do what I connect with. I do what gives me bliss. And it just the odd thing, Mari, I think, is that the audience starts paying attention to you when you start ignoring them.
Ooh, I love that. Yes.
That is something that is one of the great secrets of art, because a lot of people can do it in private, but as soon as there's an audience, they get, and I can tell you my formative experience with this. I was I was 2,000 miles from home to go on a tour with my band, and we were in a biker bar in the Rocky Mountains, and there were 5 people there, and they all looked very disinterested. So we played one set. So that'll cause you to question your life choices, right?
Yes.
And so we played 1 or 2 songs. I wasn't really being myself. I wasn't feeling it. And then as we started the third, I kind of stopped the band. I said, hey guys, give me a second. And I had a moment with myself. And what dawned on me was this: you've come 2,000 miles to do a thing.
Mm, hmm
And if you don't do it, it doesn't matter if this place is packed, you will walk off the stage and you will regret it.
mm,
And if you do the thing you came to do, it doesn't matter if these 5 people all leave in half an hour. You will feel proud of yourself because you know that you did what you came to do. And that was the moment I started ignoring the audience. And
mm.
you know what happened? Those 5 people by the end of the second set called all their friends, and there was 40 people. And then those 40 people by the end of the second set called all their friends, and there was 150 people in the club
Mm.
by the time we finished our show. And all it was they saw me giving it as if no one else was there, making myself happy, and
Yeah.
that was contagious. So they were like, you
Mm,
got to come down here and see these guys. And I believe that's true of writers as well. if
hmm
you if you are really making yourself happy in what you're doing, in whatever it is you're trying to achieve, and you
hmm
love it and you're achieving it, people can read that when they read it, and they're going to be
mm,
attracted to what you're doing because you love it. they're not going to love it because you focus grouped it to death to make it something you think they're going to love or they're supposed to love. That's not
Yeah.
how it works. Yeah.
Oh, I thank you for sharing that story because that sounds like such an incredible just reminder also of like coming back to yourself and your true artist nature and expression and what that the power that that can bring
Yes.
and aliven in other people when you
Mhm.
ignore them and let them
Yeah.
see that joy in you.
Yeah, it's, and you think about the times you've been sucked in by a performer or
Hmm.
by encountering a piece of art. It's almost always because it's doing something and you can't quite figure out what it is, but you're just loving the energy that of how it's being done.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it finishes and you're like, you can breathe again and you're like, oh my goodness. And
Yes.
that's not because they were like, hey, everybody's doing this kind of book this summer, so I'm going to do one of
Hmm.
those. You know, romantasy is big, so I'm going to write a romance fantasy. It's because it's because they did something that was incredibly moving to them,
Yeah.
and the skill and the passion of how they did it sucked you in.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
the audience will pay attention to you only when you stop paying attention to them.
Mm. Such a great reminder. And so all you artists listening out there, write
Hmm.
this down.
Hmm.
Ignore the audience and they'll start
Yeah,
paying attention. I just that reminder, so powerful.
that is it.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
is it. Yeah, and it's counterintuitive because the fear of being in front of people is still what most people have as their top
Yeah.
terror is having to perform something in front of people. So
Mm, hmm.
now we're saying, hey, when you're in front of people, just ignore that. And you know what, it is not as simple as it sounds. it is
Sure.
not it is not it is not easy, and the
Yeah.
answer I think to that is to just be do it. Do what enraptures you.
Mm,
Do what inflames your passion so that you get to a point where I don't even care if y'all like this is beautiful, I'm having a great time.
yeah.
And when you get there, first of all, you're going to be happy again. You're going to walk off
Mm,
the stage happy because you did what you came to do.
hmm.
But also, that is when people are going to start going, "Whoa, that person is so what are they eating? What are they listening
Right.
to?
I
I
want
want
some
some of
of
that."
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
in terms of writing for you, I know you've
Hmm.
written in kind of multiple genres. Do you have different processes for each of them, and how do you move in between them?
Well, I mean, I think that every book has different questions it wants you to answer. So every
Mm,
book is different.
hmm.
Just because you wrote, even if it was in the same genre,
Okay.
you would a different book ask different questions of you.
Hmm.
Um, and each book has something it wants to be.
Mm,
So my process is always to be organic, because when I finished Saga Boy, my memoir, which published with Milkweed Editions in out of Minneapolis, um, they I got so much praise by critics for it and other writers that they were like, "Oh, he's such a good writer, so lyrical, so poetic." So now I sit down to write Black Cherokee, my novel that just came out. And in my head, I have all those voices. Oh, he's so poetic. He's such a good writer. Oh my God. And so, and let me tell you, Mari, this is not how you want to write a book. Because with every sentence and paragraph and page, I was trying to prove how good a writer I was.
mm,
And
hmm.
it was not working.
Yeah.
So what I learned from that, and my turning point was, again, which again goes back to my roots, and
Mm-hmm.
how I grew up, I started seeing it as an organic process. So
Mm.
I stopped saying, because the book is a living thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's almost like having, like, if you have a pet dog, you can kind of tell it what to do, but it also has its own desires that you better
Mm-hmm.
be listening to, or you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
And so I started saying, I'm not going to work on my book. I'm going to go garden, you know, be,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because when you garden, right, you don't force the plant stem to grow taller. You
Yeah.
pull it apart, what do? You create the conditions so that
Mm.
it can grow. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started looking at my work as an author as, hey, go to the garden, pull some weeds, repot some plants, water some plants, clip some things here and there. But really, most importantly, the plant knows how to grow.
Mm.
Listen carefully and get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am always listening for what the book wants of me,
Mm.
and very often it's not what I as a writer want to do. I'm like, come on, could you guys stop swearing? I'm trying to make some Harry Potter dollars here, please. This is not Disney is not gonna go for this.
I love it.
But you have to pay attention, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the great wisdom is serve your story and your characters,
Mm-hmm.
not your own ego.
Mm. Could you say a little bit more about that for people who may when you get caught in that ego space, how do you kind
Whew.
of sift through it?
Yeah, well, I think it starts from the beginning also, what I said at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
making your why part of your what. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I know when I'm writing something, there's a really deep seated reason and that I'm writing it that's important for me.
Mm.
Um, and I think when you do that, it becomes sacred. And so you kind of, anytime my ego interjects, I go, wait a minute, you've written this beautiful sentence, but it kind of confuses what that character's trying to say.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
here's a choice between what the character wants to say and what the writer wants to be see how the writer wants to be seen.
Yes. Okay.
I I want to be seen as someone who writes beautiful sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my character doesn't speak in beautiful sentences. They actually speak in clipped like words and slang and are
Mm-hmm.
crude in a way that I would never be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the character always wins.
Mm. Okay.
The character should always win. The story should always win. Let it be what it is. And you always, and that's hard to spot. Like I did
Mm-hmm.
probably I'm right on the verge of finishing a novel right now. I've done maybe 15 drafts of it,
Wow.
and a lot of those drafts were about me getting myself out of the way. I'm like, oh, there's your ego. We're gonna have to get that out of there. Oh, showing off again. Okay, let's get that out of there. Like, yeah, we get it. You got a lit degree. Okay, yeah, let's
Mhm.
get rid of that. Nobody needs to.
But that sounds
Right.
like even within that you found play and get to laugh and remind yourself of that.
Yeah, well, when your process is or about organic and growth and the book is a living thing, you
Hmm.
can laugh and play with it because you haven't wrapped a lot of writers wrap their very identity and their self-worth up
Hmm.
in the book.
Yeah.
And I think having this sort of, no, the book's a living thing and I can take my ego out of it, the blessing of that is you don't have to take it personally, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the judgment is what the book needs. So if the book cusses a lot, I'm like, that's just my characters. I am a well-behaved young man. That is not me, you know?
Yeah.
And so you can kind of distance yourself. And that's the distance that art should be done at. Because
Mm.
I think we love stories because of what they teach us and what they show us, because of the reflections we get,
Yeah.
right? So if you're too invested, then what we're getting is your therapy notes, not
Mm-hmm.
not not the story you're trying to tell and the ideas you're trying to bring out. And
Mm,
so, or whatever that story is trying to say. And so I feel there is a distance that's required.
mm-hmm.
And unless, and trust me, I got 14 drafts to prove that it don't work.
That it's
To get
hard to get the distance sometimes.
Yeah, well, hard for me, but I mean, I think I didn't realize I needed it till probably draft 10, where I was like, this seems to be a lot about you, sir, and not about the characters. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you for sharing that honest experience of going through it, and hopefully draft 15 is it that you've
Oh, it
discovered.
definitely is. I
Oh, good.
already I already know it's the book is blossomed just from
Mm,
me following that
mhm,
sense of the good news is when you realize that it is about these characters and the story that they're in and you surrender to that,
mhm.
they if there's a reason why you pick those characters in that story, they will
Yes.
speak to you and they will speak very loudly to you,
Mm, mhm,
and it won't be very hard to get where you want to get to. But
mhm.
the hard part is psychological.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, Antonio Michael,
Mhm.
this has been such a treat getting to chat with you. I have one last question.
What's that?
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
Wow. What does it feel like in my body to be creative? I I think most of the things I realize this, most of the things I love doing, writing, reading, playing guitar, playing basketball, they change the way that I breathe.
Hmm.
I realized that my breathing slowed down and calmed down whenever I did certain things. And then I realized that the reason I love doing them is because of that.
Hmm.
Because after a couple deep breaths, your body's autonomous nervous system gets activated and you get
Mhm.
calmed right down.
Yeah.
And that is really what it feels like to me, a kind of a flow state
Mhm.
built on the breath,
Mm.
uh, a meditative state built on breath. And from that place, that's kind of where everything happens, you know? And so a lot of my focus in my practice is ritualizing everything so that I can get into that place really quickly.
Mhm. Mm.
And so that's why I write at the same time every morning. That's why
Yeah.
I'm handwriting this draft. And so I literally have, I'm staring at it right here, a leather bound book, a beautiful leather bound oversized book, a fountain pen
Mm.
that's expensive, and I only use them for that book, and I write at the same time every day. And so that ritual means that I fall into that meditative state, even if I was trying to not do it. I would just, the second I wake up
Mhm.
and I pick up that book and I hold that pen, my brain just like just
Mm.
descends into it. You start, the sound of the scratching on the paper is also a kind of a hypnotism.
Mhm.
And that's why I handwrite, because there's a magic to the ritual of the texture of the paper, the
Mm.
feel of the pen, and next thing you know, you're in this state, and my focus is how do I ritualize what
Mhm.
I'm doing by the things and the times and the places I'm doing it, so
Mm.
that I fall into that meditative state almost immediately, because that's where all the creativity happens. So that's
Mm.
what it feels like in my body.
Thank you so much for sharing that and all of these pieces. I have learned so much, and I am going to take with me ignore the audience, and they will find
Absolutely.
that's my
Absolutely.
takeaway today. If people want to learn more about the work you have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
I am on most social media, but really, if you want to get my attention, go to Instagram. That's the one that I actually spend time on.
Mhm.
Um, AntonioMichaelDowning.com is my website. So you can check out the various books there. Black Cherokee is the new novel. It's on Simon and Schuster. And Saga Boy, Saga Boy, which is on Penguin Random House and Milkweed Edition. So all of those you can go look for. And if you do check it out and you come to Instagram, give me a shout. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you ignored the audience and it worked.
I love it. Well, I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me as well, Mari. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.